more carefully managed seed production. So the family that stimulated that particular thought is the Brassicas, the kool family. Because they're also tricky little buggers. They do outbreed drastically. So for example, if you plant cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts together, they're all going to cross with each other and going to give you some really weird things. But the trick with them is that they have to be insect pollinated. So even if you cage your brassicas, let's say I've got cabbage and broccoli growing next to each other in our community seed garden. On Monday, I've got to take the cage off the broccoli so that the hochos can come and work. And then I've got to put the cage back on in the evening. And Tuesday, I've got to take the cage off the cabbage so that the hochos can come and pollinate that one. And these are very important foods. I mean, you're getting 8 grams of protein per 100 grams of brassica. All those wonderful things like sauerkraut and this special force inside the cruciferous vegetables. I can't remember what it is, but it's very, very important on a nutritional realm. And I think it relates to something that we would otherwise get from fish. So the brassicas are a very, really important family for us. And someone's ringing the doorbell. And we need to be able to grow them. So the case then for domestic and group seed gardens being equally important is very strong. Okay. So are there any questions from any of this input so far? I hope I got anyone off seed saving. What was I supposed to say next? Protection. Oh, I think we covered protection. So maybe maybe now's a good time to just have some ideas from all of you who are being extremely quiet because you have to be. Any ideas that have come to mind, challenges, questions that we could just brainstorm around now? Because we've got the opportunity. Yeah, it's a Bernice.
Yeah. So in terms of protection, I am thinking more about the human element, because we've had at in the community garden where we thought, okay, these are good specimens, we'll keep them to go to seed. But then somehow, when a custodian is not around, it kind of disappears, or somebody harvests, or so it's more around the human element when there's a group of people working. And I know it's about everybody moving together and being informed and understanding what we are learning. But I'm wondering if others who are on this meeting can give some advice about how to just manage that in the short term.
Can I say something? So Bernice says one thing is to celebrate the seed saving and make it a bit of a gedunte. The other very interesting thing that I learned recently from the syntropic agriculture world, and I don't know if I mentioned this last week, it explained something that was happening in my garden that I couldn't understand. When our plants are in their growth phase, when they're photosynthesizing, they are collaborating with and stimulating and mobilizing water-loving bacteria and fungi in the soil environment around them. When the plants go into the seed making cycle, so when they start thinking that it's time to breed, they start taking other nutrients out of the soil around them. And as they get closer to setting their actual seed, they start pushing out the water-loving bacteria and fungi, and they call in the hydrophobic, water-phobic soil organisms, so that the soil environment doesn't get too muddy and cause the plant to rot. So that's, I've observed, I couldn't understand why my lettuce going to seed was making my spinach miserable until I came across that piece of information. So that's a very long way, but it's a very good scientific justification for your seed production garden being separate from your vegetable production garden in the end. Full stop.
Okay, so would you suggest then that as we think about just designing our spaces, that we design with that in mind, set aside a space that could probably be cordoned off, and have X number of onions, X number of calendulas, etc., that will go to seed?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, because then a couple of things happen. One, you've got the hydrophobia out of your section you want to eat, and mentally you've got the space that needs different care by itself. And then for other people, they're like, oh yeah, it's that place.
Yeah. Sacred space.
Yeah.
I like that. Good.
Also, it could be, the illegal space, the activist space, whichever one's going to swing. Are there any other questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, how do I say your name?
Myram.
Myram. Okay, I was going Marame. Okay,
yeah, no,
like macrame.
No, Myram. I've got a question. You talked last week about seeds encoding, like they kind of have in their seed like their history, right? So, for example, if so, my question actually is, if I buy, say, a cucumber or something store-bought, and it's been treated with chemical fertilizers, and I then want to, if I were going to use these seeds to plant a new cucumber plant, and I don't obviously, and I wouldn't treat it with chemical fertilizer, with only organic stuff, is that plant then organic, or would it still have traces of chemical fertilizers in it?
It may have the memory of having taken in or needing chemical fertilizers, but I will confess to not being a hardcore organic seed saver, because sometimes you just have to save what you've got. So the thing is, if you've collected the seed and you're growing it on and you're giving it beautiful conditions to grow in, the food you eat is going to be organic, and the seed should within 2 generations have forgotten all about its dirty past.
Okay, so if if there's like a plant growing from there and I would sell these fruit, I cannot like label it as organic until 2-3 generations afterwards, right?
Well, when you say label organic, what do you mean?
I mean,
do you
not
mean
label,
like,
but can I consider it organic completely?
It's grown in organic conditions. It's organic. You can't call it open pollinated. But once you've collected the seed from it yourself, you can probably call it, in 1 generation, 1 growth cycle. Absolutely.
Okay.
So what I do to avoid the law around calling oneself organic is I say that my seed is permaculture grown, or what I was heading towards on the seed bank was to register with the participatory guarantee system, which is the peer-to-peer organic certification.
Okay, thank you.
But
Can
you
I
can
ask
call
one
it
more?
open pollinated. Sorry, love?
Sorry, my daughter's here crying. One more question. How long can you save seeds? Like how many years? Or is that depending on the plant?
It does depend on the plant, and it depends on the conditions under which you keep it. But, you know, 2 to 3 years, absolutely fine, as long as it's cool and dark. And what's going to happen, the longer you keep the seed, the less are going to germinate.
Okay,
And
thank you.
if they get dry, and then the thing is, okay, cool. The other thing is, you know, a seed is a little package of genetic information with a little bit of a lunchbox attached to it, so that when you plant the seed in the ground, the darkness and the moisture wakes it up and it goes, oh, okay, it's time to do that thing. And then with great effort, it breaks out of its skin and it puts down its root, and then it puts up its beautiful leaves. And it's got just enough of a lunchbox to get it through that phase and up and out and into the 2 adult leaf stage. So if you keep your seed for a very long time, its lunchbox gets less. So not only do less of the seed germinate, but they've got a little bit less of the oomph required to get out of their shell and out of the ground. But if you use like cold storage, like that fancy place I was talking about in Switzerland, and probably that one in Norway, then they freeze the seed. Then it'll last much, much longer. So if you've got access to a freezer and you can keep the humidity constant, then you can freeze seed and it'll last for much longer. Any more questions? So Bernice, you know, in protection, you just reminded me of something. Birds love seed. And I have watched the weavers strip all the brassica seeds out of my brassicas here. So if you are growing a lot of seed, you are putting out a message that there's lots of delicious stuff for the birdies to eat. So you may need to think on a large scale of you know, maybe larger netting. But the moment you're working with groups of people, and I mean, we've seen the power of collaboration, then all of this is possible. Cool. I think that looks like, how's everyone doing? Is that enough for today? Lekker.
Thank you very much, Alex.
It's a huge pleasure. I think what's really important is for people to think about their space, their personality, and their attention to detail and how much time they have. And then it's a bit like matchmaking. Will partner you up with the right seed. So I think before next week, just to really think about that and think about possibility, not problem. Think about the possibilities, and maybe the kinds of food that you or the people you're working with want to eat, and come with your lists. Lekker. Okay. Well, I'm going to go off to the last bit of sunshine. Love you all lots. Have a great week.
Thank you very much,
Naomi.
Alex.
Pleasure.
And thank you, Naomi.
Yeah, you're very,
Thank
very
you,
welcome.
everyone.
Thank you for your patience, everybody, and it's been a great education.
Excellent.
Goodbye, everybody. Until next week.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Enjoyed the lesson. Thank you.